Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a big question. Is our education system outdated?
A very timely question.
Right, it feels like everyone's talking about it. Parents, teachers, even students themselves. And we've got some great material to help us dig into this. We've got personal stories from Medium, kind of getting that human side of things, and a report from the World Economic Forum, the big picture stuff.
So we're covering all the bases. Sounds like a good mix.
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
And in one essay we found, it actually calls schools factory schools. Like they were designed to just pump out workers. And get this, another author actually dropped out of high school.
Really?
Yeah, built a successful tech business. Now he's questioning if the whole system needs a shakeup. So I'm curious, from your perspective, where do we even begin with this idea of an outdated education? What are your initial thoughts?
Well, it's a debate that's been going on for ages, right? But it's definitely more relevant now than ever. I think to really get to the bottom of it, we have to look back at where our education system even came from.
Okay, so like historical perspective.
Exactly. Our modern system, it actually has roots in 19th century Prussia.
Wow, that far back.
Yeah. Back then, it was all about standardizing things, creating a workforce for the Industrial Revolution, churning out factory workers.
So basically, like, schools were designed to prepare people for factory jobs. But those jobs are, like, disappearing left and right now.
Yeah.
So are we all being prepared for a world that doesn't even exist anymore? I mean, what do our listeners think about that?
It's a great question, and it shows how complicated this whole issue really is. Education has changed a lot since the 19th century, but let's be honest, there are definitely some parts that feel, well, stuck in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about it. Standardized tests, memorization, that rigid structure that doesn't always work for every student.
Right. It's like one size fits all.
Yeah.
And that brings to mind this statistic from the Strata Education Foundation. They found only a third of students feel prepared for the workforce after they graduate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap, right?
It is. And it's impacting people's lives in a real way.
Exactly. And it's not just about, like, knowing the right stuff for a specific job. It's bigger than that.
Absolutely. The world's changing so fast with technology, the global economy, climate change. We need people who can think for themselves, solve problems creatively, adapt. The question is our education system really setting them up for that?
Totally. It's not about just a job. It's about being ready for anything. And speaking of change, we have to talk about AI. I mean, it's everywhere these days. And the World Economic Forum report we've got, it actually dives into this. And it's surprisingly positive about AI in education.
Yeah, what's interesting is they don't see AI as replacing teachers. It's more like a tool to help them be even better.
Okay.
They talk about 4 big promises of AI in education: supporting teachers, refining how we assess students, boosting digital literacy, and personalizing learning.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. What does supporting teachers with AI actually look like in, like, real life?
Well, imagine AI handling things like grading, scheduling, all that admin stuff. It frees up teachers to focus on each student. Or it could give students personalized feedback. That way, teachers can really tailor their approach to what each student needs.
Ooh, that's cool. It kind of addresses that personalization issue we were talking about, right?
Exactly. And then there's refining assessments.
So, like, how can AI make tests and stuff better?
Well, think about it. AI could help us go beyond multiple choice questions. We could measure critical thinking, problem solving, those deeper skills. And these assessments could adapt to each student's level. We'd get a much clearer picture of what they actually understand.
So not just making tests harder or easier, but more, like, meaningful.
Exactly, getting to the heart of what students really need to know.
That makes sense. Okay, let's talk digital literacy. It's a buzzword,
Yeah.
but what does it actually mean?
Right. It's more than just knowing how to use a computer. It's understanding how technology works, how to use it well, responsibly, how to be like a smart consumer of all the digital information out there.
Being savvy in a digital world. Okay, I get it. And how does that tie into this personalized learning thing with AI?
Well, imagine a learning platform that adjusts to how you learn best, your pace, what you're into. AI could pick content for you, suggest resources, even create your own learning path based on your strengths and weaknesses.
Whoa, that's wild. It could really help those who struggle in a regular classroom. And that brings us back to that author who dropped out and did things his own way. He felt like school wasn't working for him, and he clearly thrived outside the system. But is that the answer for everyone? Should we all just ditch traditional education?
That's a tough one. His story is inspiring, but we have to remember it's just one person's experience. We can't assume everyone would succeed the same way.
Yeah, it's not a magic solution for everyone, but it does make you think, right? Is the current system flexible enough for all the different ways people learn?
For sure. It highlights the need for more personalized, adaptable approaches to education. AI could play a big role, but it's not just about the technology itself. It's about rethinking how we teach and creating environments that work for diverse learners.
So it's that balance between the power of technology and, like, the human side of learning. I'm curious, what do our listeners think? Have you ever felt like the traditional classroom wasn't the right fit? Could AI have helped?
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Come join the conversation on our Facebook and YouTube channels.
And while you're there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the rest of this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more on this fascinating topic, so stay tuned.
Makes you wonder how different things could have been with AI in the mix, right? But even beyond AI, there are other ways to shake things up.
Yeah, true. And actually, that reminds me, that dropout author we talked about, Alex Marr, he's trying some of those alternatives for his own kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's looking into homeschooling and online learning. Seems like he still values education, but he wants something that, really fits their individual needs.
I think that's a key takeaway here, right? It's not necessarily about ditching the whole system. It's about being open to different ways of doing things, like homeschooling, for example. It offers so much flexibility.
You're right. Parents can tailor the curriculum, go at their kids' pace. But what about the social aspect? Don't homeschooled kids miss out on that?
That's a common concern, for sure. And it does take a lot of effort from parents to make sure their kids are getting those social interactions. Homeschooling communities often organize events, activities, stuff like that, and there are resources to help parents find specialized instruction if they need it.
So it's not perfect, but it's an option. What about online learning? That seems to be getting more and more popular.
Definitely. It opens up a whole world of courses and resources, and it's super flexible in terms of when and where you learn.
Yeah.
Could be a game changer for students in rural areas or those with, unique learning needs.
But isn't there a downside to online learning, too? Like, you're not getting that face-to-face interaction, and there are tons of distractions.
You're not wrong. It takes a lot of self-discipline to succeed in an online environment, and it's definitely not for everyone. But, technology is constantly evolving. We're seeing more interactive online platforms now, trying to make it more engaging and address those concerns.
So it seems like there are a lot of different approaches popping up, each with its pros and cons. But if we're really thinking about creating an education system that's future-proof, what are the big things we should be focusing on?
One thing that's absolutely crucial is critical thinking skills. We need to teach students how to analyze information, evaluate evidence, really think for themselves, especially now with so much information overload, misinformation, and all that.
Yeah, it's not enough to just know stuff. You got to know how to sift through it all. But how do you actually teach critical thinking?
Well, one way is through project-based learning. Where students work together on real-world problems. It forces them to use what they've learned, think creatively, problem solve.
So it's less about memorizing facts and more about actually applying them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes learning way more engaging and relevant. Another key thing is fostering creativity. In a world that's all about innovation, we need people who can think outside the box, come up with new ideas.
But isn't creativity like an inherent thing? Can you really teach someone to be creative?
Some people are naturally more creative, sure, but it's a skill that can absolutely be developed. We can create learning environments that encourage experimentation, taking risks, using their imagination.
So giving them space to explore their creative potential, even if they mess up along the way.
Exactly. Making mistakes is a huge part of learning. Actually, that brings up another point. We need to rethink our whole attitude towards failure. In the current system, it's seen as this big negative thing.
Yeah, like you get a bad grade, you feel like a failure.
Right. But we should be looking at failure as an opportunity to learn and grow.
I love that. It's so true. But it's hard to unlearn that fear of failure,
It is. But if we want to encourage innovation, creativity, we have to embrace the idea that messing up is part of the process.
Totally. And that goes for teachers too, right?
Absolutely. We need to encourage them to experiment with new teaching methods, try new things.
So it's about creating a learning environment where everyone feels safe to explore, experiment, and learn from what happens, whether it's a success or not.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the role technology plays in all of this. We talked about AI, but there are so many other tools out there.
It's like we have this whole toolbox, but we need to figure out how to use it right.
Right. Think about virtual reality, augmented reality, tools that can make learning super immersive. Adaptive learning platforms that adjust to each student. Online communities where students can connect with experts and other learners from all over the world.
It's amazing what's possible. But it's not just about having the latest gadgets. It's about using technology to really enhance the learning experience and help students develop those essential skills.
Definitely. Technology should be empowering, not distracting. It should complement human interaction, not replace it.
Yeah, so as we think about the future of education, it's not just about changing what we teach, but how we teach. Creating environments that encourage critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and that love of learning.
Couldn't have said it better myself. What do our listeners think? What kind of learning environment would help you thrive?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to our Facebook and YouTube channels and join the conversation.
And don't forget to subscribe while you're there. We'll be back soon with more on this fascinating topic, so stay tuned.
It really is exciting to think about all the possibilities. But we have to be practical too. Changing a whole system, that's a huge task. Where do we even begin? It can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even start? Maybe instead of overhauling everything at once, what if we focused on smaller steps?
Right.
Like incorporating more of that project-based learning we talked about, or finding new ways to assess students, moving beyond just those standardized tests.
I like that. Those are great starting points. Even small changes can have a big impact over time. And remember, change doesn't always have to come from the top, from policymakers and administrators.
Right, starts in the classroom.
Exactly. Teachers, they have the power to make real change within their own classrooms.
That's so true. It's empowering for teachers to remember that. But they need support too, right? Like they need the training and resources to actually implement these new approaches.
Absolutely. Professional development is key. We need to give teachers the opportunity to learn about new teaching methods, how to use technology effectively, all of that, and to collaborate with each other, share what's working.
Collaboration is so important. And what about parents? They're a big part of this too, right?
Huge. Parents and the whole community need to be involved in supporting education. It really does take a village. But here's something that's been on my mind. We've talked a lot about the skills students need for the future, but what about teachers? How do we make sure they're ready for this AI-driven world?
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. What does that even look like?
Well, of course, teachers need to be comfortable using technology in the classroom. That's a given. But it goes beyond that. They need to actually understand how AI works, how it's going to impact education, how to use it ethically, responsibly.
So it's not just about teaching with AI. It's also about teaching about AI.
Exactly. We need to make sure students understand AI, its limitations, its potential pitfalls. We need to help them become informed, responsible citizens in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI.
It all comes back to those 21st century skills, right? Critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, being adaptable. That's what will really equip students for whatever the future throws at them.
You got it. And we can't forget those essential qualities. Curiosity and a love of learning. Those will take students far, no matter what.
Totally. We need to nurture that sense of wonder, that excitement about learning, not just in school, but in life.
Well said. At the end of the day, the future of education, it's not just about preparing for specific jobs or keeping up with the latest tech. It's about helping every student reach their full potential, to become lifelong learners, to contribute to making the world a better place.
I love that. It's a beautiful vision for the future of education.
It is, isn't it?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From the history of education to the role of AI, alternative models, what skills we need. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And we're not done yet. We want to keep this conversation going.
Yes. We want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on the future of education? What have your experiences been like? Share your thoughts with us on Facebook and YouTube.
And while you're there, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future deep dives.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration, everyone. Keep those questions coming, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.